I'm Pastor Keith Mackey. Carolyn and I want to express a great big thank you to Dinuba Christian Church for your confidence in us, in your decision to contract with Interim Pastor Ministries and have me come to your awesome congregation and together go forward in the interim process. Right now, we're hard at work prepping for the trek to move ourselves and our stuff literally halfway across the continent. You know, words like dumpster and bonfire keep cropping up in our minds. But be that as it may, we're very anxious to get started. So, let's get started. What, you say you would like a quick video sermon for Memorial Day? I thought you'd never ask. Let's start with the text. Psalm 121, verses 1 to 8. I lift up my eyes to the hills. Where does my help come from? My help comes from the Lord, the maker of heaven and earth. He will not let your foot slip. He who watches over you will not slumber. Indeed, he who watches over Israel will neither slumber nor sleep. The Lord watches over you. The Lord is your shade at your right hand. The sun will not harm you by day, nor the moon by night. The Lord will keep you from all harm. He will watch over your life. The Lord will watch over your coming and going, both now and forevermore. In God we trust. All the days of my adult life, I've been a keen follower of government affairs and politics, and for a long time, that was on a professional level back in the day. But never, ever did I ever imagine that we would find ourselves living in a Robert Ludlum novel. Man, there's so much we could say on this national patriotic holiday in this, the year of the plague. There are so many opportunities to really get in a lot of trouble, and gleefully so. But let's not yield unto temptation, and let's concentrate on the topic at hand. On this Memorial Day weekend, I want to talk about God and country, about the sacrifice of so many men and women for our nation. Despite all that is facing us now, I still appreciate this country. And once again, we ask, if we're such a horrible, terrible place, why are so many people still so desperately trying to come here? We remember that in order for this to continue, we have had at times use our military might, and many people have given their lives in combat and other situations in order that those freedoms and opportunities might continue. See, all of this that our nation has done and gone through and accomplished will be all for nothing if we forget this motto, in God we trust. I think it's important that we remember that this is more than just a slogan. It is, and it should be, a tremendous spiritual truth. Couple of thoughts in God we trust, because, number one, trusting God is a source of help. Let's look specifically at the area of our salvation. Now, salvation is one of those words we bandy about just about every time we get together. We seem to have a handle on it. We know that we are lost, that we are fallen, and that we are separated from our Creator. We need someone to come in and save us. Just as if we were in a burning building or a skidding automobile or a crashing airplane, we are in need of being rescued. Those of us here in the room are aware that we cannot do this for ourselves. We are defenseless, disabled, if you will. When we look at the eternal, we realize that we are powerless to do anything about it. But we are not abandoned, because there's been one who came and rescued us. One who has cleared the way for us to escape this terrible fate that was described as being a place where people wail and gnash their teeth. The realization of these facts of reality is the first step to getting rescued. We realize that we are helpless, undone, sinful creatures. To get rescued, we must trust. We must trust in God. Our psalmist today in our text asks the question, where does my help come from? The answer is in the next line. My help comes from the Lord, the maker of heaven and earth. And it is a fact of reality in the universe that the Lord God Almighty, the great I Am, the maker of heaven and earth, is revealed to us in one way only, and that's through Jesus of Nazareth, the Messiah. Through no other way can we be rescued. Through no other way can we know our Creator God. Through no other way can we find rescue. If people are to be saved today, then we must point people to God, and we must point them to God through Jesus. Number 2, trusting God leads to a state of happiness. God's constant care for His children is another reality of the universe that we must always remember. We face many hardships in this life, and I think it behooves us time and again to remember and to speak about the fact that the Lord does take care of us. It behooves us to remember that sometimes that care does not always come in the form that we would like. But that is an assurance that we have, that when we face problems and we ask for deliverance in whatever form that is, we know that we will have it, either in this life or ultimate deliverance when we are ushered into His holy presence. He who watches over you will not slumber. Indeed, He who watches over Israel will neither slumber nor sleep. The Lord watches over you. The Lord is your shade at your right hand. The sun will not harm you by day, nor the moon by night. Now a cool part of this is when the psalmist says the sun and moon will not harm you, you see that has special significance. The sun and the moon were symbols of pagan religions held by Israel's enemies. And the psalmist was saying, don't fear the sun god, don't fear the moon god, for they are false gods. Because you see, our God is God. Today we'd say, don't be psyched out by secular humanism. Don't be intimidated by Islam. Don't be frightened by cults or voodoo or Native American religions or the Hindus or the Buddhists or witchcrafts or horoscopes even. Our God is God, and our God will take care of them in due time. So you see, we can echo the words of the Apostle Paul when he said in Philippians 4:12 and 13, he said, I know what it is to be in need, and I know what it is to have plenty. I have learned the secret of being content in any and every situation, whether well-fed or hungry, whether living in plenty or in want. I can do everything through Him who gives me strength. Number 3. Trusting God brings a sign of hope. Let's talk about real hope. There is no doubt among us here that all our hope comes through the Messiah, Jesus, the Anointed One. Not any government, but through the King of Kings. Because we trust in God, it is true that for generations, for the nations of this world, America has for so long been a sign of hope. The thing that keeps it free, besides the blessings of God, which are primary, but besides that, it's a strong military. And it is right, and it is good that we honor and remember our military, not just those who have given the ultimate sacrifice for our freedom, but for all who have worn the uniform of our country. Memorial Day, you probably all know this, first called Decoration Day, began in 1868 as an occasion for placing flowers in the graves of those who gave their lives in the Civil War. It was later expanded after World War I to include American casualties of any war or military action. So the result is Memorial Day has served as a time to unite the country in honoring those who died to protect America's freedoms from the Revolutionary War to present conflicts. More than 1 million men and women have died for our freedom in a variety of actions, including, but not limited to, the following list. July 4th, 1675. Colonists joined in King Philip's War. That's colonies versus about 3 tribes of Indians. And it ended on August 12th, 1676. From 1689 to 1697, the colonies fought a little war with France. It was called King William's War. Bet you didn't know that we fought them again in Queen Anne's War, also known as the War of Spanish Succession, in 1702, and that lasted till 1713. It was in 1744 that the French colonies here in the New World joined in King George's War when they fought Britain. Now, there was a 13-year break in the war, but then it blew up again in 1756 with the French and Indian War, when the French colonies fought Great Britain again until 1763. Now, while all this was going on, the English colonists had their own war going on from 1759 to 1761. That was the Cherokee War, when they fought the Cherokee Nation. In 1775 was the American Revolution. Oh, we know about that one for sure. But I'll bet you didn't know about the Franco-American Naval War that took place on the high seas between the newly formed United States and France from 1798 to 1800. Now, wait a minute. I thought they helped us? Can't trust a Frenchman. We just caught our breath from that one. Then in 1801, the Barbary Wars kicked in as we took on Morocco, Algiers, Tunis, and Tripoli for 15 years. And here we thought Middle East entanglements were something new. Of course, from 1812 to 1815, the United States and Great Britain locked horns for the last time in the War of 1812. And we may have gotten them off our backs finally, but they did burn down the White House in 1814, which wasn't very nice. Now, you'll recall a few years ago, then President Obama welcomed then Prime Minister David Cameron to the White House. Cameron said he was somewhat embarrassed that they did that, burn the White House, and he apologized. But Obama made it clear, all sins are forgiven. Then in 1813, there was the Creek War, as the United States fought the Creek Indians. In 1836, Texas fought its War of Independence from Mexico, and in 1846, the United States and Mexico duked it out in the Mexican-American War. Of course, the worst of them all was the Civil War, from 1861 to 1865. Now, you've probably heard of the Spanish-American War in 1898, and from here it gets a little more familiar. World War I in 1914. World War II in 1939, the Korean War in 1950, Vietnam kicking in 1960. The Grenada invasion was in 1983. We invaded Panama in 1989. The Persian Gulf War was in 1990. I believe that's the first war my brother Ken was in the Air Force. In 1995, we saw the intervention in Bosnia and Herzegovina. That's the first war my son Joshua was in, again, in the Air Force. And, of course, 2001, the invasion of Afghanistan. That didn't end so well, did it? And in 2003, the invasion of Iraq. And all of this is not to mention the Cold War and its many manifestations. When it comes to war, I guess it's like an old history professor of mine used to say, the good old days don't exist. Human history is history drenched in blood. And we can wring our hands and twist our hankies all we want, but the truth is this is how it will continue until that great and glorious day when our Lord returns. So, war, what's it good for? What? Yeah, absolutely nothing. But while we decry war and such things, still it is a fact of reality that such things must be. And it is a fact of reality that we can wring our hands and we can twist our hankies all we want. But the fact that you and I are sitting here this day in freedom without fear of intervention from governmental goons is due to the sacrifice of men and women in uniform who took up arms and went to battle for you and I. John T. Bird gave us this poem called The Last Monday in May. He said, "We pause to remember those who died with so much courage, so much pride. They'll never come back, yet memories endure to remind us of freedom, fragile, pure. We're worthy of their sacrifice if we pause each day, not just on the last Monday in May." How fortunate that throughout our history, Americans have been blessed with the opportunity to live our lives in freedom. Without the brave men and women who have served in our armed forces over the last 2 centuries plus, this would not have been possible. It is important that we remember them always with respect and gratitude. Now more than ever, the voice of so-called reason is screechingly raised to drown out the voice of true hope. Now more than ever, the voice of so-called reason is shouting out that America is no better, it is no different. Indeed, other nations are better, and it's time for America to have her comeuppance. At the same time, now more than ever, our society tries to cast off God himself. But I notice the more strident these voices become, the more you see the response from faithful people who reject this nonsense and renew their trust in the one who can bring true hope, real hope. You know, political and earthly hope may come from America, but spiritual and eternal hope comes from God himself. Satan may think he has the church on the run. You know, Newsweek declared the end of Christian America, but look back over history. More than once the death of Christianity has been declared. More than once people have written the church's obituary. Yet the church marches on. The church continues on. Christianity thrives in Africa and other third world nations. I understand. Our government has to walk gingerly among the diplomatic cow pies of politics and global posturing. But on this Memorial Day 2022, I think there is something we need to realize. We still must strive, even in the midst of the cultural civil war that rages as we speak. My goodness, the headlines lately. It breaks your heart. We still must try to influence our society back to its spiritual foundations. And you know what? That's probably going to be done one soul at a time. Hey, we have work to do. So what are we going to do about it? As Winston Churchill said, Americans can always be counted on to do the right thing after they have exhausted all other possible options. I believe that. Anyway, what is the legacy we will leave our children? What is the legacy we will leave them? The legacy that in God we trust. We see it in many places in this country, not only on our coins, but I'll tell you what, we see it in our hearts and our lives, and it is stamped forever. In God we trust because He will reign. In God we trust because He reigns indeed, and that's the gospel truth. So have a safe and happy Memorial Day, and always remember those who have sacrificed so much for our nation. I'm Pastor Keith Mackey. Greetings, Dinuba Christian Church. So anxious to be with you in just a few short weeks. And tell you what, Lord willing, I'll see you then.